Microsoft's new mobile app, OpenAI's new partnership, and distribution and supply chain trends that you should be aware of. Those are just a few of the topics we're going to cover here in episode 175 of Transformation Ground Control.
Welcome to Transformation Ground Control. Ground Control. The podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation. This podcast features technology agnostic and international discussions related to digital strategy, software selection, implementation, change management, business process optimization, and everything else you need to know to make your digital transformation project successful. Whether you're embarking on an ERP implementation, supply chain transformation, or any other business or digital transformation, this podcast is for you. Now, here's your host, Eric Kimberling.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, welcome to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 175. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And this is the podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation, including ERP implementations along the lines of strategy, people, process, and technology. So thanks for being here today. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. Joining me as always is our co-host, Darian. Darian, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. We're both sort of on the scene at an industry conference here, a vendor conference. So bear with us with background noises and things like that. But we wanted to get this episode out despite our travels here today. But we've got an exciting episode for you today. We've got we're going to start off with some audience questions we've received over social media. We're going to address those questions here today. And then we'll get into a couple newsworthy topics. One is the release of Microsoft's new mobile app for D365, as well as OpenAI's new partnership with Reddit. So we're going to talk about what that means to the industry and the future of AI. And then later in the show, we'll have our first guest, Will Quinn, who is a global director of strategy for WMS for Infor. So he's a distribution guy. He's known as the distribution guy. In fact, that's his name, his nickname in the space. So the distribution guy himself, Will Quinn, will be on the show here later today. And we're going to be talking about distribution and supply chain management trends in the world of AI. And speaking of AI, our last segment of this episode is going to be focused on how to create an AI strategy for your organization. So we're going to give you some tips on how to do that, how to make sense of all this AI stuff that everyone's talking about, but so far isn't doing a lot about in terms of actually implementing AI. So we're going to talk about how to define an AI strategy to help you sort of ease your way into the world of AI. So before we get to all that, though, Darian, what are some of the questions you've got for us from the audience?
Yeah, some good questions this week. From our audience. The first is, why does Agile struggle? Lack of capable project management to define realistic priorities and proper scoping. The same is true of quote unquote waterfall. ... There is no substitute for lack of direction and leadership. What is your take on this, Eric?
That's an interesting comment / question, because it really gets at the root cause of why so many projects fail. And that is, Agile versus waterfall, I have some pretty strong opinions about. I think if you go too far one direction or the other on Agile versus waterfall, that's going to set you up for failure. So you've got to find that right balance of Agile versus waterfall to make sense for your organization. But this point or this comment goes even deeper than that, which says, regardless of whether you use Agile, waterfall, or some sort of hybrid of both, if you don't have executive alignment and if your organization as a whole isn't aligned, then the project's not going to succeed, regardless of what methodology you might use for implementation. So I think it's a great point that you have to start with making sure that you're on the same page and that the organization has a lot of clarity and direction on what they're trying to accomplish with a digital project or the ERP project, whatever technology you might be deploying. So once you've got that, then you can start to have a more informed conversation and decision point around, do we go Agile? Do we go waterfall? Do we do some sort of hybrid of both? If so, where on that spectrum do we fall on that hybrid? You can't really answer those questions and have a deliberate and clear strategy without first having that alignment and making sure that everyone's on the same page, at least at the executive level to start, so that when we make decisions for the project, that we're making decisions in the context of the overall direction.
Yeah, super interesting question / comment, I guess. Good to get your take on that. Our next question today is, hi, Eric. Great executive summary again. I'm currently finishing a Fit Gap project and found your recommendations hit the nail on the head. Two personal learnings to consider: how to select the right SI for tech, and who/how to manage them in the project simultaneously. Could you maybe answer or give some more information for this person about those two things?
Yeah. So can you summarize the two things for me again? Like summarize the kind of the gist of what they're asking.
Yeah, so how to select the right SI for tech, and who/how to manage them and the project simultaneously.
Okay. Thank you. So the SI, choosing the right SI, you certainly want to look at the traditional, tangible, hard skills that the SI has. Are they certified? Is the team, is the organization qualified? What's their experience base as an organization? But what's even more important is to look at the team that the SI is putting in front of you, the system integrator. What kind of resources are they putting in front of you? What kind of experience do those individuals have? And then third, and probably most importantly, you have to look at the cultural fit of the system integrator with your organization. A lot of times companies get enamored by a big name brand and assume that just because it's a big name brand, it's going to be a great fit for their organization or a low risk fit for their organization. And the reality is you have to make sure that you have an organization that fits who you are and what you're trying to become. For example, if you're a small, lean, nimble organization and you go hire a really big system integrator like one of the big four, that's probably not a good fit because the big four consulting firms are not lean and nimble and agile in terms of how they implement. Typically, they're typically more suited for larger, more mature, more stable organizations, I'd say. So you have to look at that, not just the qualifications, because that is important, but it was even more important is does the organization fit? Is it a good fit and is it a good partnership? And you also, lastly, I think, one of the really hard intangibles that a lot of times organizations don't even think about is what kind of leverage do you have with the system integrator? If you're if you're a much smaller organization and you hire one of the really big consulting firms, it's sort of like a unhealthy mismatched relationship from the beginning because you don't have a lot of leverage with that SI. And not that it's all about leverage or control, but you do need to have a certain amount of that when it's your project, your organization that has to deal with the changes. So we find that a lot of mid-market companies, companies that aren't necessarily excited about hiring one of the massive big four consulting firms, we find that a lot of them do really well with like a second tier. And when I say second tier, I don't mean second tier of quality. I mean second tier of size, sort of a mid-tier system integrator. Those can be a really good fit because a lot of times you get these really solid mid-market implementation partners that have hundreds, maybe even thousands of consultants at their disposal, maybe not hundreds of thousands at their disposal like a big four company does, but if you have hundreds or thousands at your disposal, that might be plenty for you. And it's a big enough organization to give you some scale, but small enough that you're going to get the attention you need, and it's going to be a more balanced relationship. So those are some of the things you've got to think about. It's the tangible, and the intangibles, I'd say, are even more important.
Yeah, that's some great information for our audience here today. Audience, you guys always have some great questions, so thank you guys for the questions this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I appreciate getting to those, and always enjoy answering those real-time questions as they come in. So drop those in the chat on whatever social media platform you follow us, or if you're listening or watching to this podcast, you can always drop them. Drop the questions in this podcast episode or any other content we produce, and we'll cherry pick some of them. Thank you for that. And we're going to shift gears here in just a moment. We're going to get to a couple newsworthy items. We're going to talk about Microsoft's new mobile app for D365. We're also going to talk about how Reddit and OpenAI have recently forged a partnership and what that means to the world of AI and social media and tech space in general. And then later in the show, we are going to talk about distribution and supply chain management trends in the world of AI. That's going to be with Will Quinn, who is the Global Director of Strategy at Infor WMS. And then we'll also, later in the show, talk about AI strategy and how to create an AI strategy for your organization. Be sure to stick around. We've got a lot more to cover, a lot more great stuff to get to here today. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
If you are involved in any sort of digital transformation or business change initiative, you'll want to download the Digital Transformation Report. With its comprehensive overview of business and technology trends and best practices, this report is a must-have guide for any transformation project or executive team. Download this free report by visiting Third Stage Consulting at thirdstage-consulting.com. You can also visit our website to learn more about us or download independent reports, videos, and other best practices. Again, visit thirdstage-consulting.com today to learn how you can take your transformation to the third stage of success.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 175. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm here with Darian, Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com, and you can also listen to past episodes of this podcast by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com as well. This is the podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation, including people, process, technology, and strategy. And we've got some great newsworthy topics here today related to Microsoft, OpenAI, and Reddit. So what have you got in store for us, Darian?
Yeah, so first of all, Microsoft D365, the warehouse mobile app, was released late 2023 and was available, I guess, for download onto your phones and your iPhones, Androids, etc. during that time. But recently they came out with some key upgrades to the version previously. This includes enhanced authentication, username, password, single sign-on, and automatic sign-on for workers, which can be really important for security purposes and just ease of use for people that are using it on the daily. It also improved the app stability and performance. I think it was a little bit inconsistent, so now it is becoming more consistent, especially in those demanding environments, especially when times are really busy. And the last thing is usability enhancements, including text scaling, better accessibility, and support for Android navigation gestures. This app overall has been super helpful for people in the warehouse industry specifically. Eric, how much influence do you think releases like this have when it comes to user adoption for companies?
Well, I think anytime you can literally put an app in people's hands and make it real easy for them to access, I think that's super important. And not only that, not only is it sort of a physical connection, with the mobile device and being able to access your ERP system or your technology from wherever you are, it's also just being comfortable or delivering the software in a platform that you're already comfortable with. If you already are comfortable with your iPhone or your smartphone, you're going to be a lot more likely to use the app on there. The big question I had there, just as you were describing that app and sort of the value of it, though, Darian, is I was starting to wonder, and I don't have a good answer for this. I was starting to wonder what that means for cybersecurity. You've got now with mobile apps, you have to worry a little bit more about cybersecurity because now you've sort of decentralized the application and the access to your company data via the mobile app. So you have to be real careful and make sure you tighten up the security profiles of how you assign people, what they can access, and that sort of thing. Because you have to assume that there's a decent risk that someone loses their phone or, leaves their phone out, and, people could potentially access it that you don't want to have access certain data. So I think just really tightening down security is even more important when you've got these mobile apps. But I think in general, the user adoption is going to be a lot higher when you've got a mobile app like that, because we're all used to it. We all know how to use our apps on our phones and figure it out a little bit easier than maybe on a computer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one of the things that I was thinking about, especially when they did come out with enhanced authentication processes, obviously, but still it is on users and workers' phones, and on the daily that is definitely a lot less safe than something else that your workers might have that is just like a local computer that the company has or something like that. But overall, how do you think the new usability features like text scaling or support for Android navigation gestures improve day-to-day operations for warehouse workers in general, besides for the fact that it's just a little bit easier?
Well, I think, ease of use is certainly one, but I also think you're going to have more real-time data and less human error by having it on a mobile app, because now you're not relying on what has historically happened in warehouses. Is a warehouse clerk will go do whatever they do. They pick, pack, or ship whatever it is they're pick, packing, or shipping. And then they go back to a computer oftentimes and scan something or enter it in the computer. But with mobile apps, you're able to process things more real time. And not only that, but if you think about like when I'm walking around a warehouse, if I can't find an inventory bin that is in the warehouse, I don't have to go back to a computer, a terminal to figure out where I need to go. I can just look on my phone and potentially see, what warehouse location or bin do I need to go to get whatever inventory I'm looking for. So there's a certain amount of efficiency, certainly effectiveness, ease of adoption, more real-time access to data. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. And, it's just a way to extend an ERP system from being a back office computer-based system to more of a, more fully baked into the day-to-day operations of an organization.
Yeah, overall, I think the app is something that's super useful for workers and companies in general, besides for some risks that maybe they just need to be aware of before implementing it, or just tighten up their security overall. But to kind of go into our next newsworthy topic, this one I'm super interested in because it has to do with OpenAI and Reddit and their new partnership. Reddit, with this partnership, gets advanced AI features and gets to advertise with OpenAI. Their shares after this announcement on the stock market rose 10%. And then OpenAI updated ChatGPT also recently to recognize objects and emotions. So there are all sorts of different updates coming with this, not updates, but I guess interesting things that will come from this partnership overall. And I think from a data perspective, Reddit is a good place where chat can maybe grab some stuff just because of the user amount that Reddit has. What do you think about Reddit and AI teaming up to integrate Reddit content into ChatGPT?
Well, I think it's a great way to continue training the OpenAI model, the AI model at a exponential rate, because the more data you feed it, the smarter it gets, and the more accurate it's going to be. The less you have these what they call hallucinations, where you get inaccurate information from OpenAI. So I've noticed I'm a fairly heavy user of ChatGPT and OpenAI myself, and I've noticed a huge difference just over the course of the last year, just in terms of the quality of stuff I get out of OpenAI. I mean, when I first started using it, it was a little touch and go, I'd say, but now it's amazing how far it's come. And so I think you add these Reddit partnerships and other partnerships to where you're constantly feeding data into the AI model of OpenAI. It's just going to make it that much more powerful, that much smarter, and that much more valuable to people that use it. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I know we've talked on this podcast before about how smaller AI companies that are currently startups might struggle to keep up with just the amount of data that these larger companies have access to. So what do you think this means for smaller companies with ChatGPT expanding their partnership even further with Reddit?
Smaller AI companies, you mean, or like smaller social media?
Yeah, smaller AI companies that maybe just don't have access to the same amount of data, and now ChatGPT has access to even more than before. So are they going to fall further behind faster?
I think so. I mean, it sort of like feels like a nuclear arms race for data. The AI models that can get the most data, the most knowledge, and the most training of the models, those are the ones that are going to succeed. And I think the interesting thing about AI that I think you'll see if I had to make a prediction or try to predict the future is that I think there's going to be a big separation between successful big AI providers and the have-nots, for lack of a better word. So I don't think there's, right now you've got a lot of AI startups, a lot of innovation, things like that happening. But I think over time, it's going to be inevitable that OpenAI and some of these other, Google's got their AI model as well. These big tech companies, I think they have a distinct advantage. I think it's going to be really hard to overcome for a small startup that doesn't have that same access to data.
Yeah, that's so true. Super interesting. How do you think that, kind of switching gears here, getting rid of the Reddit part, but talking about the updated part to ChatGPT and how it's able now to recognize objects and emotions more than it was before. How do you think this ability for ChatGPT to recognize these things will impact its usefulness for integration with users?
Well, I think objects, the ability to recognize objects makes a lot of sense. And that's a very tangible, predictable, sort of thing that is perfectly suited for AI and technology in general. But the emotion thing is, I don't even know what to think of that. I mean, that's super fascinating or interesting. I'd be curious to see how in the world AI could figure out human emotion, because human emotion is so complex and complicated and confusing and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I'll be curious to see what that means and how it shapes up. But I think, and if AI can figure out human emotion, I mean, that's a pretty powerful thing, because we've been trying to figure out human emotion for as long as we've been a human race. So I think it's sort of that never-ending quest that we've been on. But if AI can help us get there faster, that's even better.
Yeah, definitely. It makes me question. I know you posted on your story a few weeks ago on Instagram about how you had your first fight with ChatGPT, and it probably didn't recognize that you were angry at it, maybe, or just like frustrated. So it'd be interesting to see in the future if it could be like, sorry, I know you're frustrated. I just don't really have an actual conversation. I feel like that'll be really interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah, and will AI become emotional? Like, why are you being so mean to me? When I get in my fight with OpenAI, like, why are you so mean to me all the time? Or or will it be like perfect emotion, like the emotion we all wish we had with each other and the patience we had with each other? I don't know. But yeah, I did in fact get in the fight with it. I forgot why. It was because it wasn't giving me what I wanted out of the system. I think it was saying it couldn't. I was trying to transcribe one of my YouTube videos, and which you can do right through YouTube. So I just went to YouTube and did it myself, or through YouTube. But it wouldn't let me transcribe it through OpenAI, and I just asked the question, why? Why can't you do that? And it would explain. And I think I was trying to create an image of myself too, and it wouldn't let me. It said it can't create an image of a specific person. So anyway, there's certain limitations of AI that I was upset with. So that will be curious to see, though, or interesting to see how AI, maybe the conversational part of it, how that might evolve over time based on emotion, or what it senses from you as your emotional level.
Yeah, and I do think that maybe Reddit will be able to help with that side of it, just because there's so many users on there that maybe do share different emotions and just different information. So they'll be able to, or the AI will be able to see just more how humans communicate with their emotions through text, which I think will be super good for ChatGPT to be able to have in its database.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's exciting stuff. Thanks for sharing these two newsworthy topics. That's great stuff. And we're going to come back to the AI thread throughout this episode. We're going to shift gears in a moment. We're going to cover the topic of distribution and supply chain management trends in a world of AI. And we're going to have that conversation with Will Quinn, who is the distribution guy. He's a global director of strategy at Infor WMS. So he's going to be on the show talking about that with us. And then later in the show, we'll talk about how to create an AI strategy for your organization. So stick around for that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring on Will, and we'll talk about distribution, AI, and all the other stuff we've got to get to here today in this episode. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. I recently published my first book. It's called The Final Countdown, Strategies to Reach the Third Stage of Digital Transformation. And I wrote this book because I really wanted to find a concise way to share some of my knowledge around digital strategy and how to get started on a digital transformation journey. So in this book, I cover 3 different sections. I cover the people, process, and technology aspects of transformation, with the idea that it's meant to be a starting point, a launching pad for organizations and team members that are going through digital transformations. So I encourage you to buy this book. You can get it electronically, you can get it paperback, or you can get it in hard copy, as I'm holding here in front of you. You can get it by going to thefinalcountdown.com. You can also search for it on Amazon if you shop at Amazon. Otherwise, just go to thefinalcountdown.com. Love to hear your feedback on this book as well. So I hope you check it out and hope you enjoy.
I'm excited to share our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Report. This free download is available on the Third Stage website at thirdstage-consulting.com. This report is truly packed full of technology-independent and agnostic insights for your project to ensure that you're strategically optimized for success. Download your copy today with the QR code in front of me or visit our website for more details.
These things take time, mom and dad, they have a good life. But what am I gonna do with mine?
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 175. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. The show is produced by Major Tom Productions and sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And it is the company that I'm the CEO of, not coincidentally, by the way. So excited for our next guest. First-time guest on the show. I've had an opportunity to meet this gentleman here at one of our conferences at our Digital Stratosphere conference last year in Denver. I had a chance to meet him in person and thought it'd be great to have him on the show. He's known as the distribution guy in the tech space. I've been following him and been connected with him for quite some time on social media, particularly LinkedIn. Smart guy. He travels the world seeing and talking to different clients in the distribution and supply chain space. So a perfect guest to be here to talk about our topic here today of distribution and supply chain management trends in the world of AI. So with all that being said, Will, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Eric. Glad to be here. Reference. I don't think our Gen Z colleagues are going to understand that one. They may have to check the Google machine for that.
Right. And you're known as the distribution guy. That's sort of your branded name, your personal brand is the distribution guy. So tell us about the distribution guy, kind of your background, what you do it in for, all that good stuff. Love to hear about your story.
Sure, great. Well, again, thanks for having me. So I'm in my 3rd year with Infor. Our warehouse management system and our strategy. Before that, I came from the industry. So I came from Grainger, and I had spent my entire career in supply chain logistics, running distribution centers for companies like Grainger, MSC Industrial Supply, Coca-Cola. I cut my teeth in supply chain logistics in the Marine Corps. And now I really do a lot of enablement sales team. What are the challenges that distributors are facing? How demand planning and inventory and making warehouses more efficient? Hey, why does that matter? And how can we help with using our systems to make their lives better? You figure that 6 million people in the distribution industry. It's $8 trillion industry, and if you just look around, whether it's your house, your office, just about everything that came through a distribution center or through a distributor. So if life as it exists.
The essential workers, especially during COVID, I think a lot of us took for granted how important distribution was, and essential distribution workers and warehouses and all that good stuff. Tell us about the conference you're at right now. This week you're obviously at a conference, sort of live on the scene there. What is the conference that you're at?
So yeah, coming live from sunny Orlando, Florida. It's TUG, or it's the user group for Infor users in the distribution field. So they come together, and it's a really great community. They all use the product, the various products, and learn how they classes on, what's going on in the industry, what's new with this product, and they just come together and help each other out and say, it'd be nice to have these features and functions. Can we get these on the roadmap? That sort.
So just to sort of start the conversation here and sort of diving into trends in the supply chain space in this world of AI, how would you summarize just how the supply chain management field has evolved, leading up to where we stand right here, mid 2024? What are some of the big evolutions or big accomplishments in the space right now?
Sure. It's ever evolving, right? So if you go back to, I think, the origins of supply chain, you think back to the Romans and how they had kept their soldiers supplied. Think how big the Roman Empire was. I've got soldiers all over the place, trying to maintain their territories. How do I only, and especially when your enemies are taking a scorched earth defensive zone where they just burn everything. You just can't go to the local store and get food. So so they had to create these supply chain lines. And it's really, it's fundamentally it's no different, right? If you go back and in history, everybody was trying to trade with China, and that's still the case, right? So we're trying. Things have gotten easier with supply chain lines and trains, and one of the few inventions that made moving freight back and forth was the container, which kind of revolutionized that industry. And over time things have gotten easier and easier and easier, and then supply chains got longer and longer and more complex. And then when things like that just threw a wrench into everything, and people ran out of inventory. So then there was the bullwhip effect, where everybody's like, well, I just need everything because I have to have it. And then eventually that inventory came in, and then the warehouses were busting at the seams, and there was other warehouses. So things are calming down. You're starting to see some things like nearshoring. We're trying to take manufacturing and put it closer to the end users to reduce the possibilities of disruptions. So the closer it is to your end user, obviously, the less opportunity there is for disruption. So lots of evolution, introduction of technology to make things more precise. It's ever evolving. It's a continuous improvement of how can you make something work better for end users.
What do you see as the big the big impact COVID has had kind of longer term on supply chains in general, and supply chain management, distribution, this whole thread here? It's
really inventory, right? If you look at a distributor's financials, the biggest line item they had is their inventory. So it's balancing having the right amount of inventory so that you're satisfying your customers' needs without having too much, because as interest rates have gone up, the cost of money's gone up, the cost of maintaining inventory goes up, the cost of housing that inventory goes up. So you have to have a balance of just in time. So able to take a look and utilize tools like artificial intelligence to say, okay, I've got 150,000 SKUs. Do I really need to have a year's supply of all of those, or do I just need that's it, my 80-20 rule, right? Can I just use this tiny subset that really drives my business and have excess of those just in case, and then the majority of SKUs just have what I need and to keep it level set. That makes sense. I think that's the biggest one.
Yeah. So some level of stockpiling inventory, but not so much that you're not cost effective and overinflated with how much inventory you have just in case.
Correct.
Yeah, very interesting. So then looking ahead, as we look to how distribution and warehouse management is going to continue evolving through the rest of 2024 into 2025 and beyond. What do you see as if you're sort of predicting some trends in the space, or maybe some things you're starting to see materialize now and you think it'll sort of accelerate in the future? Where do you see us heading here in the next year or two in supply chain management distribution?
It's an interesting time. When you go to a large conferences like ProMat, you kind of see the future. Right? You see 10 years ago, if you went to ProMat, very few automation companies there. Now, there's a lot. They're all over the place. But I was just recently at a ProMat-like show in Mexico City a couple of months ago, and again, no automation there. A lot of trucks and security firms, insurance firms, but no automation. So it really depends on the geographical region as to what's happening here in North America. It's cloud, it's artificial intelligence, it's automation, but not necessarily in that order.
Right. Yeah, a lot of cloud automation, AI. That sounds like those are the big themes you're seeing so far. When it comes to AI, like how real are you seeing? How real is it right now when you're talking to customers and people that are actually using technology and potentially using AI? How much have they embraced it versus how much is there still, how much below the iceberg is there in terms of untapped potential with AI? Like where do you see the average customer standing right now in supply chains?
I think the average customer is not using artificial intelligence to a great degree. And I think if you just look at the industry in general, we're not the most technically advanced. You get very comfortable in, hey, this is worked. I get the orders in, I ship them out. Why do I need to move off this AS400? It's bulletproof. It doesn't let me down.
Right.
So AI, while all the conferences I do go to, there's a lot of interest in AI, but a lot of distributors are like, geez, I don't even know where to start, right? Because that's not what they do. They're very good at distributing orders. They're not everybody's fluent in technology, and they don't have data scientists and things like that. What's great, where we have a great product where you don't even have to be in them. You can come in a matter of 4 months, extrapolate it, give it back to you into actionable ideas that save money. It's pretty exciting how it can be done, but obviously in the cloud, it's faster and easier.
Right. Yeah, and the data's in one place, and it's easier to access and build those models in a cloud environment for sure. I'm here with Will Quinn talking about distribution and supply chain trends that you should be aware of in this world of AI. I've got a lot more questions for Will, but we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back with more Transformation Ground. People oftentimes ask me how I built such a strong social media following on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and other outlets. And the fact of the matter is it took me a long time to build a following through a lot of trial and error, making a lot of mistakes. Had I known that there were companies out there that could help me build my brand, I would have done that a long time ago. I didn't know that, but the good news is that there is today a consulting firm that will help you through building your own personal brand through some of their training programs. The company is called Roloff Consulting, and if you're familiar with Emma Roloff, she's someone that I've had on this podcast before, and she's well known in the digital transformation space as well as the sales space, and she's big on TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And she and her husband have started a training course and a training company that focuses on helping people build their personal brands and helping them to sell themselves digitally. So whether you're a salesperson that's trying to reach more customers or you're an individual that's just trying to build your personal brand, that's something that they help with through their training programs. And they've offered listeners of this podcast a free 5-day LinkedIn challenge. And I encourage you to check it out. I've included a link below for this podcast. If you go to the podcast notes, you'll find a link that gets you free access to this 5-day challenge where you'll get step-by-step guidance. You'll get real results. So you'll get some tangible results from the program. And you also get a special offer at the end of it. So it's exclusive to listeners of this podcast. Be sure to check out the link below if you want to work on building your personal brand, or if you're in sales and you're trying to reach more people. Whatever the case may be, check it out. It's free to listeners of this podcast. You can check it out via the link below.
Interested in working for a company that truly values your unique skills and experience? Here at Third Stage, we don't hire based on resumes alone. We look at the full candidate, experience, and willingness to provide excellent service for our clients. Within a technology independent and agnostic consulting firm, you have the opportunity to learn across industries with a diverse group of clients. Our consultants also have the opportunity to diversify their portfolio and learn across technology systems. If you're interested in joining a high-growth entrepreneurial organization, please reach out to us at work@thirdstage-consulting.com.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 175. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. The show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, an independent consulting firm that helps clients with digital transformation, and it is produced by Major Tom Productions. If you'd like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, I've included contact information for Major Tom below. I'm here with Will Quinn, and we're talking about distribution and supply chain management trends in a world of AI. So how do you overcome this? As you're talking to customers, you're sort of on the forefront of AI because you work for a software vendor that's, pouring a lot of R&D dollars into AI. And then you've got sort of that possibility of what could be with technology. And then you've got the reality of where the industry is, which is, I like my S400, or I'm still trying to figure out how to get to the cloud. I'm not even thinking about AI yet because I can't even get to the cloud yet. Or, how do you bridge that gap between sort of the product vision that you guys have and that you're working on as sort of you're in this industry versus where the industry actually is today? How do you see that unfolding here in the coming years, or reconciling that difference in the coming years?
Sure. I think it's just like kind of like with iPhone users. So some iPhone users are just, when the next version's coming out, they're camping out days in advance because they want to be the first one. So there's always a small percentage of distributors that want to be on the cutting edge, right? They want it. So we have customers that are using it, and then they can come to a group like this, TUG, and they can say, here's what we're doing with this. We had an AR clerk that retired after 40 years, and we were able to automate 90% of what she does using the AI, matching up the bills so that it didn't have to go through a person. So you're just managing the exceptions. So it's getting your early adopters, getting them successful. So you have those use cases and those success stories so that others can learn. Because again, it's like, well, most don't know where to start. So I think that's the path.
Right. Is identifying the early adopters and then looking for ways to build on what the early adopters are doing. It also seems like even just getting some good, even if they're micro use cases from different distributors, so you have different companies that have tried AI in certain little pockets and just sort of building on that. It seems like that's a good way to get some early momentum, maybe some early wins. You can sort of be an early adopter without necessarily being on the total bleeding edge because you can sort of leverage and look to what other people have already tried or done or whatever. Are you seeing much of that where you're sort of building on each other in these communities to
you can
learn from one another?
You can just take your Amazon experience. You go to Amazon and you look up a widget, and on the bottom it'll say, well, other people have bought this. Well, that's a great use case,
right,
for distribution, because if you've got counter sales, and so they come in and they want brake pads, well, somebody that's been working the counter for 30 years is like, hey, do you need some brake lube? Do you need casters for that? You need a spring set. Whereas somebody who's brand new doesn't have that experience and knowledge. What if the AI tells them, hey, people who bought this also bought that? Then that can help. Now, as somebody who works in inventory and runs DCs, it's like, all right, well, how do we use that? Well, if I'm slotting, and I also have that same information where 30% of the time where they buy item A, they buy item B. Well, let's slot those next to each other to reduce movement on the picking end. Right. So it's taking those real live use cases and say, well, what do I already do, and how can I use AI to do that better? Our AI folks are like, well, what could be some use cases? And I think, all right, well, what's the first thing that happens when inventory comes to a facility? Well, it comes in a truck. And if it's a full trailer coming from somewhere, if I've got, a decent sized facility, say a 700,000 square feet. I've got 50 doors. Well, I've got 50 different opportunities to put that trailer in a door, but there's one that's the most optimal that's going to reduce the amount of travel to put those items away. What's the best door to put that in so I can minimize that travel time to put it into the put it away in my house.
Right.
Things like that.
Yeah. And there's so many little but high value areas where you could start to sort of cherry pick and test on a small scale, different use cases for how you might use AI. And the good news is there's a lot of experimentation that has to happen with AI in order for us to really get our arms around how it could maximize our efficiency and whatnot. Here's a question from Megan on LinkedIn. Megan says, what is the biggest struggle in supply chain management that AI has helped solve or could potentially solve in the future? Do you see, you just mentioned a couple examples of how AI could be helping, but do you see others that, other sort of big, high value types of areas that you think AI could start helping supply chain and distribution companies sooner than later?
Sure. It depends on, where along in the supply chain you are. I think if you're looking at it overall, I think demand planning and inventory levels is the biggest bang for the buck, right? Because if you take a look at, if I'm a demand planner, if I'm a buyer, if my products run out, I get a lot of heat. But if there's extra, I typically don't catch that much heat. So what am I going to do? I'm gonna err on the side of having way too much, and we'll just let the warehouse manager figure that out.
Right.
So excess inventory costs and potential obsolescence, excess damages, it just sits around. So inventory is, I think, for my money, is the biggest one right now.
Yeah. Makes sense. And like you said earlier in the conversation, inventory being such a big line item on people's balance sheets and also their P&L, it seems like that's the area where there's a lot of room for optimization, especially when you factor in human behavior. Like you mentioned, we tend to not want to, the last thing we want is to run out of inventory. So we're probably going to err, as it is, we're going to err on the side of high inventory and maybe over inventory or too high inventory. And then you add the fear that probably still resides from supply chain disruption from COVID, and that probably further exasperates that human behaviors where now we're really stockpiling inventory that maybe we didn't do 5 or 6 or 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Hope
that answered your question, Megan.
Yeah, it was a great question, Megan. Thank you. Do you see, speaking of COVID, do you see the ripple effects starting to settle down and some of those supply chain disruptions? I know, a lot of times we still feel it as consumers. We still, I still hear people say, oh, we've got supply chain issues, or ever since COVID, the supply chain's been messed up. I don't know how much that's just becoming an excuse now versus actual reality, but regardless of whether it's an excuse or the reality, do you think it's starting to settle down? Do you think people have sort of figured out how to navigate this post-COVID supply chain world? Or are we still in the process of transitioning into whatever that new future state is?
Well, I think the effects I think we're past that. I think there may still be some pockets of excess inventory that are still kind of hanging around. But I think for the most part, the supply chains are open. There always are disruptions. I mean, things happen in the world. The war in Ukraine is causing issues. When the rebels are shooting at boats in the Red Sea, that can cause some issues. Boats get stuck in the canal, that causes issues. Or when seems like every other boat running in taking out a bridge. So that's a thing now. So there's always specific issues. There's always things that are going to cause disruptions. And so how can you have the information to inform your customers? Even though a planning system might not be able to prevent the disruption, at least you have the information and you can course correct. So if I know the inventory I was expecting next week is not going to be there for 2 more weeks, well, I can try to get some from a different facility, or I can get some from a different vendor. Just having the information can allow you to make decisions quicker instead of just saying, well, there's nothing I can do because there's an issue.
Yeah.
But to your point, I do think it some of it can be a bit of a crutch. It's got COVID. I think the majority of that is done, to be quite honest. I'm not hearing all these events that I go to. I'm not hearing the COVID thing anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I think we're all looking forward to not talking about COVID anymore. Again, but I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know that's the case with me. But wait, what do you think at this moment where we stand in mid 2024, and as you're going to these different conferences, you're talking to customers every day in the space, what are the biggest things keeping supply chain managers up at night? Like, what are their biggest concerns right now?
So it's still people, right? Companies are struggling for frontline talent, forklift drivers, demand planners, inventory clerks, because as e-commerce has proliferated the number of warehouses, so you need that much more people. I mean, prior to the pandemic, I know we don't want to talk about it anymore, but prior to the pandemic, we struggled to keep DCs full. So I was in Granger, and it was a 1 million square foot facility with 700 people. We're always shorthanded, and Granger, it's a great company to work for. They take care of the people, they pay them well, great benefits. Just shortage of people, because if you look at where that facility is, there's a 1 million square foot Amazon facility, and there's Home Depot's got another 2 million square foot facility, and they're just everywhere. So more as e-commerce takes over, there's more warehouses, you need more people. So that's I think that's the biggest struggle right now is retaining talent. You've got the boomers are starting to retire, and there's not enough of us Gen Xers to replace them. So it's really up to the millennials and Gen Z to grab the bull and charge through.
Right. Yeah. And that makes total sense. I'm here with Will Quinn talking about distribution and supply chain trends that you should be aware of in this world of AI. I've got a lot more questions for Will, but we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to share a little bit of information about Third Stage Consulting and who we are. Third Stage Consulting Group is an independent, technology agnostic provider of consulting services to help clients through their digital transformations. We help with digital strategy and software selection, as well as implementation planning. And during implementation, we provide services related to program management, organizational change, business process improvement, as well as enterprise architecture. These are just some of the services we provide. We have offices in North America as well as Europe and Asia Pacific. So if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to check out our resource center, which includes a number of resources that will help you through your digital transformation, and you can access that for free using the QR code here or the links below. You can also reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss your digital transformation and brainstorm ideas on how to improve where you're headed on your journey. Now let's jump back into today's content.
The last thing you want to have happen is for your digital transformation to end up in court. I've been doing this for 20 years and I have seen everything. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney focusing my practice on drafting and negotiating software-related contracts and litigating software disputes across the country. Feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the litigation process and what you can expect.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 175. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. The show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, an independent consulting firm that helps clients with digital transformation, and it is produced by Major Tom Productions. If you'd like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, I've included contact information for Major Tom below. I'm here with Will Quinn, and we're talking about distribution and supply chain management trends in a world of AI. I just realized some of the chats aren't coming through on our platform here that we're streaming from. Some comments I wanted to get to. One is from Shrivan on LinkedIn, says, "Hey there, supply chain management and AI are game changers. I'm sure looks bright with these advancements." So thanks for that comment there. Dr. Project Y is also on LinkedIn and says, "AI reshape supply chain dynamics. Curious perspectives add value." And so, I guess that sort of brings up another thought or another question, Will, this concept of the intersection of AI and humans. How do how do you see that integration coming along? Are the frontline workers that you work with, are they sort of resistant to this idea of AI? Do they embrace it? How do you see this human factor colliding with AI, and how do you see that resolving itself here in the coming months and years?
So front house workers, I think you're going to see more Industry 5.0 cobotics. So I've got instead of me pushing the cart, collecting items, I'm going to have the robot next to me, and it's gonna be the cart, and I just go and I pick to it, and the AI is going to manage all that. Now with your workers in the office, they'll have more exposure to AI, I think, in their jobs and demand planning, in AI, in all forms, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Generative AI, that's the word I was searching for. I know that's a big release coming in October for our inside of our RPs. That's going to help with a number of different use cases.
Yeah. Makes sense. What do you see as, you talked about the talent shortage and how people are one of the biggest things keeping supply chain managers up at night, and finding the right people, especially on the front line, some of those essential jobs that you talked about. What do you see as the career prospects in distribution and warehouse management? I mean, if I'm a younger or earlier in my career, and I'm trying to figure out how to navigate my career in distribution, what are the career prospects? What should I be thinking about? What's your advice?
Mm-hmm. So, supply chain distribution, it's a great career, but when you're a kid, you never grow up and say, "Oh, I'm going to be a purchasing manager. I'm going to run a warehouse." Like it's just not in. It's doctor, lawyer, fireman, policeman, that sort of thing. For me, I want to be a Marine, but there's more and more good schools are having supply chain management bachelor focused programs. So there's really a lot of opportunity in supply chain and distribution. It's like I said, as more warehouses come online, there's somebody's got to run the warehouse. Somebody's got to be the engineer to work with the all of the automation that's within the warehouse. So there's plenty of laborious and technical jobs in warehousing. And then I think, as we go into the future and more automation is introduced, there'll be less labor intensive jobs and more artificial intelligence and robotics jobs in those facilities. It's a great field to get into. It's been a great career for me.
Yeah. Especially if you can combine, your knowledge of functional or operational aspects of supply chain management combined with AI or data science, or some maybe a little bit more of a technical angle as well. It seems like those two things together are pretty, not deadly combination in a bad way, in a good way, like a pretty powerful combination. Maybe that's a better word. Would you agree with that? Like having those functional and the technical skills, or what are your thoughts there? If I'm trying to navigate, like what part of supply chain management do I get into to get started?
I mean, you'll never, if you've got a technical background and you understand how artificial intelligence works and how technology works, it's just like being a plumber. You'll never be out of work.
Yeah, there's always demand for it. So what about when, if I'm a supply chain leader and I'm looking at my technology situation right now, whatever it is, I've got these legacy systems, and I'm just trying to figure out maybe how to get off my old mainframe, my S400 system, or, I've got an old ERP system that I've outgrown, and I'm sort of just looking up and looking around, trying to figure out how to find the best technology, or just evaluating potential technologies. What are some of the considerations that leaders should be aware of or think about? Like, as you're out there representing Infor, for example, what are you advising customers to think about as they evaluate you as a potential vendor, or other software vendors out there as well?
I think it's important that the customers start with, what their vision is. Like, what do they want to be? Like, what do they want their company to look like now, 5, 10, 20 years into the future? And then really align whatever technology that is available that's going to support that. So, aligning with a company such as yourself can help create that vision. Say, okay, here's where you are. Here's where you want to be. Here's what we recommend moving forward. So it's really what depends on what the company wants to be, what capabilities they need when they're talking about selecting software.
Yeah.
And then once they make that decision, they should get your book and take a read at it, because folks in distribution or any other area, they're really good at doing that, not implementing software. So it's just like any other, any other implementation, any other change you're doing. You can't emphasize enough the importance side of the business, because we could have if I look back, my pleasure on, for inventory control and customer service and quality, Monday mornings for me I was head deep into SAP for about 6 hours, just pulling information from all of these disparate systems so I could put them into a PowerPoint presentation, which then put into a spreadsheet, and then put another presentation so that I could push that up so that the leaders had the information they needed to make their decisions every week. So not having to do that would free my time up so that I could be out on the floor leading, teaching, coaching. So it really depends on, what do you want, what's your vision, and what capabilities you need that are going to help you now into the future.
And thank you for bringing up my book. You can actually buy the book right here. Scan the QR code if you want to buy The Final Countdown. You can also go to thefinalcountdown.com. So I had to do that shameless self-promotion there since you brought it up, Will. Thank you for the easy softball that you threw up there for me. But in addition to
it's a great book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you and I had a chance to discuss it, and I signed you a copy when you were at our Stratosphere conference last year. So thank you I'm glad you enjoyed it. So there's a lot of pieces, obviously, in distribution, supply chain management. And back to this previous question I just asked you about, how to define your priorities. You were talking about how to define your priorities and really hone in on the things that are important to you in the evaluation process. Are there certain big differentiators that you tend to focus on as a software vendor? Like when you're trying to convince a potential customer that, hey, Infor WMS is the way to go, or here's what the strengths are. Are there certain functions that are big differentiators for you guys, or potentially for just ERP vendors in general that are addressing WMS? Like, I know it depends on what you want, that's going to be your set of priorities and requirements, but are there certain big differentiators, things that are commonly a differentiator for you guys against other WMS providers?
So that's a great question. So I think when it comes to Infor, where we differentiate ourselves is we're industry specific. So our distribution ERP is different than our healthcare ERP, which is different than our fashion ERP or the gov or production ERP, because the requirements are different. So what that does is it gives you, a faster time to value, because you've got those industry best practices built in. Whereas if you have a different vendor, let's say SE, it's one version, and then you have to modify it to make it run for your business. And as for, when we talk about the warehouse management, micro vertical within distribution has its own specific requirements. So I'd say, 90% of the time, warehousing is the same from, one micro vertical to the next. But, I was at Coca-Cola, code dates and rotation was much more important than at MSC with nuts and bolts. But on the same hand, you had different chemicals that had expiration dates. So being able to manage those and do recalls are very important. So it's important to be able to highlight those are the features and functionalities that a company cares about. That's where, and then obviously we have a huge services division that can do implementations. We've got a great partner network that we work on. We've got great users groups that care deeply about the product. So that's a lot where we we differentiate ourselves in the market. We listen to our customers. They have input into the roadmap as to what features and functionalities. We are wholly owned by Koch Industries. So we've got a 20-year plan of where we want a company, and it's a partnership. So the leap of faith to an ERP and go with Infor. It's a long-term partnership. We're going to be there.
I'm here with Will Quinn talking about distribution and supply chain trends that you should be aware of in this world of AI. I've got a lot more questions for Will, but we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
Just tell me what you've got to say. Tell me, I've been waiting for so long to hear.
I'm excited to share our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Report. This free download is available on the Third Stage website at thirdstage-consulting.com. This report is truly packed full of technology independent and agnostic insights for your project to ensure that you're strategically optimized for success. Download your copy today with the QR code in front of me or visit our website for more details.
Hi, this is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting and your host of Transformation Ground Control. I want to encourage you to read our Guide to Organizational Change Management. It's a free report or free guide that we published. It's one that I actually wrote that talks about best practices and lessons learned as it relates to change management. So as you know, on this podcast, we cover a lot of stuff related to the human sides of change, organizational change management, including training, communications, org design, all kinds of stuff as it relates to change management. So if you're trying to learn more about change management or you're looking for more direction and ideas on how to get started on your change management strategy and your overall journey, be sure to check out this guide. You can read it by scanning the QR code on the screen in front of you or in the links below for this particular podcast episode. You can find a link to take you to the page that will allow you to register to go ahead and download that and read it for free. So be sure to check it out. It's the Guide to Organizational Change Management, written by yours truly. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think, and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 175. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. The show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, an independent consulting firm that helps clients with digital transformation, and it is produced by Major Tom Productions. If you'd like to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, I've included contact information for Major Tom below. I'm here with Will Quinn, and we're talking about distribution and supply chain management trends in a world of AI. What do you see as sort of once you've selected, whether it's Infor or any other, WMS or supply chain provider on the technology side, once you've chosen the technology, you go to implement it. What do you see as sort of the, top 2 or 3 things that leaders need to be aware of to be successful, to make those initiatives successful for their organization?
It's having the plan. It's you don't want to. I like your analogy of I'm going to build a house, but I don't have blueprints. Right? It's just. It doesn't make sense. With anything, if you could do, a Six Sigma event, you want to have a plan in place. So here's step 1, here's step 2, here are roles and responsibilities. Here's a timeline. Who's accountable for all of these things? Everybody understands. There's, communication until people are sick of hearing it. Because once you thought you've communicated enough, you really haven't. And then make sure it goes down. From layer to layer to layer. So it's really, and then the change management is so important because you can have, I take for example, when I had to spend 6 hours a day mining data out of SAP, well, that was my process. That's nobody else could do that. That was mine. So that's where I can add value. So if you're going to take that away from me, I get a little defensive. It's like, all right, well, what am I going to do now? So that's the kind of things you run into is just that, it's a lot of hand holding and making sure that your people understand. And then once the implementation's there, everybody's trained, having the curiosity to explore, well, what is this? What do these features do? What can I do? What does this screen do? What does this screen do? How can I make this better? And then maintaining the training and knowledge. Because what happens is, they get up to speed. A couple of years go down, people are promoted, they move on to other companies, other people come in, and there's not money aside to continue with that training so that everybody's up to speed with the program. And then it's like, go learn from Susie, who learned from Johnny, who learned from Jackie, 3rd and 3 and 4 degrees of separation, and people don't understand, and all of a sudden it's a bad stuff. So I think it's getting it in the initial education there, and then ongoing and continuing education so your new people understand. And part of how you can do that is just is clearly documenting all the processes with screenshots. And step 1, this is so if there's 10 steps to completing a cycle count, I want to make sure all those 10 steps are documented. The screens in the scan gun or the computer are there accessible, and you train them so that they you really bring fear to your people and setting the expectations. This is what's done right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people, they underrate that last thing you mentioned about documenting processes and documenting training materials, because you're right. You lose someone retires or leaves the organization that's been there for 10 or 20 years. That's a lot of tribal knowledge that goes out the door especially if you haven't documented the way your processes can and should work. So yeah, I think that's a great point. You want to have that stuff documented, as sort of repository of knowledge that can sustain any sort of attrition and that sort of thing. So what advice would you give to organizations that are still trying to navigate some of these distribution and supply chain challenges today?
Well, I would definitely plug into whatever their local association is. If it's the National Association of Wholesale Distributors or the Industrial Supply Association, National Association of Electrical Distributors, whatever one it is, and plug in, because there tends to be a broad wealth of knowledge when it comes to what's happening in the industry. What are they recommend? Leadership seminars, so you can bring in your the next gen of leadership. That's a good place to start. To keep plugged in with the industry.
Right. Very cool. Well, I guess just to wrap things up, what are you most excited about here at these conferences you're attending? What are you personally most excited about in the world of distribution and supply chain management?
Well, I'm 3 years removed from the industry, so this helps me keep in touch with what's happening in the industry. I get to talk to customers, hear how things are going well, what things aren't going so well, how I can help, trends, that sort of thing, because that relate what the future of product is going to be. So I'm excited about meeting our customers and seeing how I can help them.
All right, that was great stuff, and loved having him on the show. Loved having Will on the show. Loved having the guest questions as well, or the audience questions as well. We've got a couple follow-up questions we're going to get to here in just a moment, but first we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control.
Could you whisper in my ear?
If you are involved in any sort of digital transformation or business change initiative, you will want to download the Digital Transformation Report. With its comprehensive overview of business and technology trends and best practices, this report is a must-have guide for any transformation project or executive team. Download this free report by visiting Third Stage Consulting at thirdstage-consulting.com. You can also visit our website to learn more about us or download independent reports, videos, and other best practices. Again, visit thirdstage-consulting.com today to learn how you can take your transformation to the third stage of success.
I recently published my first book. It's called The Final Countdown: Strategies to Reach the Third Stage of Digital Transformation. And I wrote this book because I really wanted to find a concise way to share some of my knowledge around digital strategy and how to get started on a digital transformation journey. So in this book, I cover 3 different sections. I cover the people, process, and technology aspects of transformation, with the idea that it's meant to be a starting point, a launching pad for organizations and team members that are going through digital transformations. So I encourage you to buy this book. You can get it electronically, you can get it paperback, or you can get it in hard copy, as I'm holding here in front of you. You can get it by going to thefinalcountdown.com. You can also search for it on Amazon if you shop at Amazon. Otherwise, just go to thefinalcountdown.com. Love to hear your feedback on this book as well. So I hope you check it out and hope you enjoy.
Yes, I'll do anything you ever dreamed to be complete. Yes, I'm nothing at all.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 175. My name is Eric Kimberlin here with Darian Chwialkowski. You'll find new episodes every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. And Darian, we just had Will on the show, first-time guest. He and I have known each other for some time, but that was the first time we had this more of a formal podcast interview. What were some of your thoughts or questions or takeaways from that conversation?
Yeah, I thought he had a lot of super interesting insights. I thought it was really knowledgeable, that the audience hopefully learned some things from him, especially in the supply chain and distribution space. Overall, though, I want to know your opinion on some of the questions you actually asked him. So what do you think are the biggest trends in the supply chain and distribution world right now?
Well, I think the biggest one is going to be AI. I mean, it's top of mind, I'd say, for customers, for software vendors, for consultants. I mean, everyone seems to be pretty well aligned and focused on AI. But having said that, I think where we're not all aligned is just how exactly do we use AI. And that's why I wanted to dig into that a little bit more with Will and sort of ask him, like, okay, there's a sort of utopia future state of what AI could be, but then there's the reality of where most distribution organizations or just organizations in general are right now. And I agree with what Will said as far as a lot of these distribution companies are conservative. They're very mature and established. They have their legacy systems and processes that are hard to change, and they're further behind in some ways. In making the transition to even just getting to a modern ERP system or a cloud solution. And so to go to AI, going to AI and using AI is a whole nother step beyond that. So you have to sort of look at where you are in the journey and recognize that, okay, AI is out there on the horizon, but in order to get there, I might not be able to start using AI overnight across the entire enterprise until I can get all my systems into a modern platform, get all my data cleaned up and migrated to a more modern platform. So you sort of have to look at that as an incremental series of steps that are going to get you to this world of AI. Having said that, though, I think there's also what's really interesting is there's a lot of I'd say legacy potential, with legacy systems and processes and data sets to potentially use AI, maybe on a limited basis, maybe not as effectively as if you moved to the cloud or you had cleaner data, but you could start using AI, on a smaller scale, even with some of your legacy systems. So I think that's something to be aware of as well. So I'd say AI is the biggest trend. I'd say data and analytics is huge. I mean, everything Will talked about seemed to center, or not everything, but a lot of what Will talked about was focused on demand planning and optimizing inventory. And those are things that are really important they've always been really important to distribution companies. And he even went back to the Roman Empire days of supply chain management. So clearly he's a scholar, not a scholar, but he understands the history of supply chain management and kind of how we got to where we are today. And so you go back in time and up until now, you struggle with how do we optimize inventory? How do we make better use of our data? How do we predict what we think we might need in the future? All that stuff. So I think that's sort of an ongoing trend that's going to continue. But I think it accelerates a little bit now because of AI. Now data is even more important, and getting better analytics and better data and making better use of it, I think is going to be another trend that we see.
And with AI being your top trend for this supply chain world and distribution world, what do you think are some specific uses for AI for these companies?
Yeah, Will gave a couple. He talked about, I know predictive analytics was one where he was sort of talking about demand planning, basically. And I think that, if I'm a distribution company, I'm going to try and use AI to do all the things I've been trying to do for decades, and maybe I've been struggling to do it. So I wouldn't necessarily try to do something completely new yet until I figure out just the core fundamentals of what I might be struggling with right now. So demand planning, I think, most people listening right now that are involved in supply chain management probably recognize or would acknowledge that they could do a better job in demand planning. I don't think I've met many, if any, supply chain managers to say, oh, yeah, we're awesome at demand planning and we don't need any help with that. I think most supply chain managers struggle with that, and leaders in organizations struggle with that. So if you can use AI to maybe get to some of that fundamental stuff, I'd say that's probably the biggest use case, is look at your current challenges and the things you've been struggling with for years or decades and see if AI could be a way to solve some of those problems. And then you can start from there. You can start to look at how could AI allow us to do something totally different or way better in a way we aren't even thinking about right now. I think that's where the real value is longer term, is to use AI in just groundbreaking ways that we haven't in the past. So, but before you get there, focus on just the core fundamental stuff. I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of all this AI, before we get too far into it, you definitely want to have a strategy to implement AI into your company, and that's what we're going to show our audience next.
Yeah, we've got a YouTube video we're going to play for you here in a moment. It's from my YouTube channel. It just came out a few weeks ago, and it's about how to create an AI strategy for your organization. So we're trying to get beyond the pie in the sky stuff and talk more specifically and tangibly about how you might take where you are today and start to create a roadmap to start leveraging AI and start to move towards more open or widespread AI acceptance. So we're going to get to that here in just a moment. First, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control.
My name is Eric Kimberling, and I'm the CEO and founder of Third Stage Consulting. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to invite you to learn a little bit more about Third Stage Consulting, who we are and what we do. We help clients through their entire digital transformation life cycles, beginning with digital strategy, software evaluation and selection, all the way through and including implementation planning, implementation readiness, and the actual implementation itself. We're technology agnostic, so we only represent our clients' best interests. We do not represent software vendors. But having said that, we work very closely with software vendors, all the leading players that you can imagine we've worked with, both in helping clients evaluate and select them, but also in helping clients implement those solutions as well. So we have a very broad, objective, agnostic view of the market that is meant to really represent your interest as you go through your digital transformation. I also encourage you to scan this QR code right here to get access to our resource center. This resource center has a ton of information, a ton of ebooks that are free. You have access to top 10 software rankings, playbooks for how to make your project more successful, guides to change management, YouTube videos, all kinds of stuff that are going to help you through your digital transformation. So I encourage you to scan this QR code to get access to those resources. And please feel free to reach out to me directly to brainstorm ideas about your project. Even if it's just informally, you want to bounce around some ideas and get some informal advice, I'd be happy to spend some time with you. So feel free to reach out to me. I've included my contact information below. You can also find it in the description field of this video as well.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S/4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 175. My name is Eric Kimberling here with Darian and Chwialkowski. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday at transformationgroundcontrol.com. The show is produced by Major Tom Productions and sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And speaking of digital transformation journeys, one of the things that we are starting to help clients more and more with is helping them define their AI strategy. But a lot of times clients will ask, how do I even start with AI? Where do I begin? It's overwhelming. There's too many options, or there's too many pie in the sky examples of how we might use AI, but we're nowhere close to being ready to embrace those pie in the sky ideas. So a lot of questions. I'd say there's probably more questions about AI than there are answers right now. And so what we wanted to do is share with you this video clip where we talk about how to create an AI strategy for your organization. So with all that being said, let's roll the clip of how to define or how to create an AI strategy for your organization.
One of the things we do as independent advisors for organizations is to help them define how they're going to use AI and other emerging technologies within their organizations. However, it's not as simple as just picking an AI tool and hoping for the best. there's a very deliberate and structured process that can be used to define the best ways to leverage AI, not only in the short term, but also in the long term as well. So what I want to do today is share with you a framework for how you can take these simple steps to define what your roadmap is and define an AI strategy that makes the most sense for your organization based on your goals and objectives. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to share a little bit of information about Third Stage Consulting and who we are. Third Stage Consulting Group is an independent, technology-agnostic provider of consulting services to help clients through their digital transformations. We help with digital strategy and software selection, as well as implementation planning. And during implementation, we provide services related to program management, organizational change, business process improvement, as well as enterprise architecture. These are just some of the services we provide. We have offices in North America as well as Europe and Asia Pacific. So if you'd like to learn more, I encourage you to check out our resource center, which includes a number of resources that will help you through your digital transformation, and you can access that for free using the QR code here or the links below. You can also reach out to me directly if you'd like to discuss your digital transformation and brainstorm ideas on how to improve where you're headed on your journey. Now let's jump back into today's content. The really cool thing about AI, and also the overwhelming thing about AI, is that there's a multitude of ways that you could be using AI. A lot of different use cases, a lot of emerging ways that you could be creatively looking to leverage artificial intelligence throughout your operations. And in that plethora of options comes a certain amount of complexity and confusion and overwhelming priorities. And so what we need to do is, first of all, define what our strategy and objectives are as an organization. Where do we think the highest value is going to come from by using AI? We could probably use AI throughout our entire organization and find hundreds or thousands of ways to use AI to make our businesses better. And maybe we will at some point in the future. But to start, you want to take sort of a phased incremental approach to figure out how can you start using AI now and how can you start to bake AI into your operations. And the best way to do that is to look at your overall corporate strategy, goals, and objectives and determine where AI has the most potential to add the most value in the least amount of time. The beauty with this approach too is that it doesn't necessarily mean you need to replace all of your systems and go through a massive digital transformation. The beauty of AI is that you can leverage pockets of technology to build on the systems and the data and the platforms that you've already built within your organization. Not to say that you may not eventually replace those current legacy systems, but AI can be used right now to make full use of some of those systems. So to get there, it makes the most sense to start by defining your strategy, goals, and objectives as an organization, and then define how AI can best support those strategy, goals, and objectives. And that's what I'll talk about next throughout this video. Once you've defined what your overall strategy, goals, and objectives are as an organization, and maybe you have some general ideas of how AI might help enable those strategy, goals, and objectives, now you start to look at your business processes within those areas where you might be able to provide the most value throughout your organization. For example, let's assume that you're having trouble with stockouts, inventory stockouts, and you're not able to fill customer orders as high as you'd like. AI could be a great way to provide better capabilities and better insights to help you better anticipate customer demand and better handle your inventory management. So if that's the case, in this example, you would want to define your current state business processes within the realm of inventory management and perhaps customer order management, and define what the current state is and where the major pain points and inefficiencies are. Once you've done that, then you can start to define sort of a what-if scenario. What if we had AI tools that, for example, would give us a more accurate demand forecast from customers? If we had AI that could do that, what would that mean for our inventory management? And what would that mean for our overall production schedule? Things of that nature. So you'd want to look at those business processes as they stand today, assess where the strengths and the weaknesses are, the efficiencies and inefficiencies are, and then start to think creatively about how could we possibly use AI tools to give us more improved business processes. Artificial intelligence is a relatively new technology. It's actually been around for a lot longer than many of us realize, but compared to ERP systems or other types of technologies, it's relatively new. It's just been really on the forefront of the mainstream just in the last few years. And as such, most of your employees are still probably unfamiliar with how AI can be used. So it's not enough to just simply put AI in the hands of your employees and assume that because they have AI tools, they're going to be able to improve the business processes themselves or do their jobs better themselves. Instead, what you have to do is paint a picture and define how people's jobs are going to look in this post-AI environment that we're deploying. So in the example before where I was talking about better anticipating customer demand using AI tools, now that we've defined where the processes are broken and where they could be more efficient, now we need to define how that affects different people within the organization and how different people within those specific processes are going to use AI in the future to make their jobs more effective and more efficient. So if I'm a customer service rep and I take orders from customers, there's probably certain things that I can start doing to use AI to make my job more efficient, but I need to be shown how AI will make my job more efficient. So there's a lot of planning and design that needs to happen up front before we roll out these tool sets to employees to ensure that we've designed their roles and their jobs and their job descriptions to take better advantage of these tools. By doing that, we're going to ensure that when we do roll out this new technology, people are actually going to use it, and it's not just going to be a pipe dream of AI-enabled processes. It's actually going to be something that we're showing how people are going to use that in their day-to-day jobs. Just as is the case with any sort of technology, you don't want to deploy technology just to deploy new technology. You want to do it because it delivers measurable business value. And that's the way you're actually going to get the business value out of your technology investments, is if you actually measure it. So when we're deploying AI, we want to look at ways that we can define what the performance measures are today for how we're performing and what they should be for the future, what our target is for the future, so that we can actually measure the value and look to see how AI is actually helping our business. In the example of inventory accuracy that I talked about earlier in this video, we might say that we're going to start measuring the variance in projected customer demand versus actual customer demand, or projected inventory levels versus actual inventory levels, order fulfillment rates. How are they improving as a result of AI? And then that's going to allow us to continuously improve so that we're constantly adding new ways and optimizing the way we do business and ensuring that we're taking full advantage of the power and the capabilities of artificial intelligence. So setting those performance measures and the targets that go along with that are something that's very important to do as part of your AI strategy and roadmap. Now, once you've done all the work that we've defined here today, you've defined the strategy and objectives of your organization and how AI might support that. You've defined your current future state processes. You've defined the organization. You've defined the performance measures. Now we define what is the roadmap going forward. What's the best option for us to accomplish all the things that we've defined so far? And this is where we start to get into things like, are we going to deploy a new ERP system that has AI capabilities embedded with it? Are we going to deploy separate standalone AI systems that maybe integrate back to our legacy systems? Is there some sort of interim solution that will hold us over until we have better back office systems? Do we need to clean up our data to take full advantage of AI, which I would say the answer to that is probably yes for most of you. So those are the types of things we have to ask ourselves, and we have to look at all the different paths we have to go forward. What are the different things that we can do to start leveraging AI? And the beauty of this, as I mentioned at the top of the video, is first of all, this is not just a one and done sort of proposition. AI is something that continues to evolve at a breakneck speed over time. So the way we see and use AI today is going to look very different than how we see and use it 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. So the beauty is it's not set in stone. We're just getting started on this AI journey. The other beauty is that we don't necessarily need to replace all of our systems. We don't need to go replace all of our ERP systems or all of our financial systems. We can start to leverage what we have, maybe clean up the data in those systems. But once we have good data, we can start using AI to really give us a sort of a better user interface and a better analytics tool to help us get better value out of the systems we already have. And maybe that's a good interim step until you do find that it's time to replace your systems. So these are just a few examples of options and paths you might consider. But regardless, you want to look at what your different options are, compare the cost benefit, the pros and cons, and the risks of each of those scenarios, and ultimately lay out and recommend the roadmap that makes the most sense for your organization. So I hope this has provided you some guidance and thoughts on how you could get started on your AI strategy and roadmap. If you'd like to learn more and you'd like to brainstorm ideas on how to get started in your AI journey, feel free to reach out to me. I've included my contact information below. You can click the link below, or you can use the contact information on the screen in front of you to reach out. In addition, I also encourage you to check out our digital transformation report. It's an annual report we publish each year. It provides a number of best practices and tips and lessons for organizations going through digital transformations, as well as independent software reviews and rankings. So that's something that might help you as well as you get started on your AI and technology roadmap going forward.
So that's a clip from my YouTube channel called How to Create an AI Strategy for Your Organization. what were some of your thoughts or follow-up questions from that video, Darian?
Yeah, definitely something that is super important for companies to start thinking about right now. One of my questions that I have for you after watching this video is, what considerations should companies keep in mind to ensure their AI strategy is scalable and adaptable to future technology advancements?
Great question. Well, I think with the right AI tools, provided that you're using software vendors and technology providers that are going to be around for a while, you should be in good shape. But having said that, we talked about this at the beginning of the episode, or earlier in this episode, we talked about how I think that, the big tech providers are the ones that are going to succeed. And ultimately, a lot of the startups that are out there right now are probably going to fall by the wayside here in the next few years. So on one hand, the good news is we've got a lot of innovation happening, a lot of uncertainty as far as who's going to be around and who's not in the future. But the bad news is I think a lot of these AI companies will not be around long term just because of the advantage the big tech providers have. So you don't want to get caught up in that, buying a tool or committing to a tool that suddenly the vendor's out of business or they stop supporting it because someone else bought it or whatever the case may be. So I think you just have to, really think about vendor viability and vendor stability. And the good news is everyone's focused on AI. Every tech provider out there is focused on AI right now. So I would almost say, lead with other business needs first and assume that there's a certain amount of AI investment happening. You can always ask more about it, but I wouldn't select a technology strictly based on AI functionality because it's changing so fast that, you may commit to a software today and 6 months from now, it looks totally different because they've invested all this time and money. But secondly, you have to assume that because there's so much hyper focus on AI right now, all these tech providers are going to get there at some point. So I would focus on other things. What are the other capabilities and the core functions that you really need and want? And then over time, you can start to adapt or implement more AI, more robust AI capabilities.
Yeah, super interesting. What resource allocation do you think that, or do you recommend for balancing AI initiatives companies may have with other digital transformation efforts?
Well, I think they can be integrated. I think even though that video we just played was focused on AI strategy, the reality is your AI strategy is probably going to be embedded in an overall technology strategy. The exception to that, I suppose, is going to be the more bigger organizations are starting to bring on a chief AI officer. You're starting to see that to become a little bit more common with bigger companies. But still, for the most part, I'd say most organizations have either a CIO or a chief transformation officer, someone who's really focused on the entire bucket of technology and transformation, which would include AI. But typically, organizations aren't going to just look at AI. They've got other stuff they're trying to solve as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Super interesting things for businesses to think about for when they're planning their future.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. And we can't talk enough about AI, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about it over the next many weeks and months as the AI world continues to unfold. But we'll keep sharing our updated knowledge as we have it throughout this podcast. So thanks for being here today, Darian. Thank you to the audience for being here. Another great episode. We've got some great guests coming up here in the next few weeks. We'll have we'll be talking about next week. We'll be talking about third-party support and maintenance. We'll be talking about digital transformation in sports, business consolidation and integration. A lot of different diverse topics we're going to be covering here in the coming weeks. So be sure to stick around. You can find new episodes every week at transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also go listen to past episodes, the entire archive of this podcast series. You can find it at transformationgroundcontrol.com. Sponsored by Third Stage Consulting Group, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients with digital transformation journeys, and produced by Major Tom Production. So thank you for being here today. We'll see you next week on the next episode of Transformation Ground Control. Have a great week in the meantime. Take care.